Hello,
Hello.
good afternoon, good morning, good time of day, whatever it is for you in the world. Good, good to see y'all. It's Banner and Backbone, the Anti-Fascist Book Club, episode 3, coming with you with Nick Perro, Melissa Corrigan, and Shane Urick today. It is great to see both of you. Welcome, friends. How are you?
Hello, hello. Great, great.
I'm happy
And
to
let
be
me
here. Let's talk some shit about fascism. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm pulling up some chats. So I've got all the lives going on my side. Um, but today we're going to continue our discussion from last week, where we um, we were going over the Task Force Butler Veterans Fighting Fascism. What is fascism document? And can it happen here? We didn't get all the way through the reading, so I wanted to pick it back up. And lucky thing is, the three of us were all here last week as part of the reading club. So we have a great group to just pick it back up where we left off, um, and get the discussion going again. So, want to do a little bit of recap on what Benner or what the Anti-Fascist Book Club is and isn't, um, where we're getting our reading list from, and what's next on the reading list, and then we'll obviously remind at the end of the show. Um, so, Melissa, would you mind introducing all of us to what the book clubs actually are and what they aren't? And do you want me to pull up a screen showing some of the baseline and getting us just that
Yes,
little bit of intro?
yes, absolutely. So, first of all, what we are not, I feel like I always have to issue this disclaimer, particularly where I live. We are in no way affiliated with Antifa, which we all know isn't like a thing anyway, but just putting that out there. We are an organization of veterans and interested citizens who would like to preserve democracy through the study of history and fascist behaviors in history and align them with things that we see happening in our current society to be better informed, educated, and empowered to go out and make positive change. So I
That's
think it's a good
fantastic.
cap
Yeah,
on.
I think that's a great recap, um, and really highlights what we're doing and why we're doing it. So let me keep pulling some stuff up. Shane, do you want to say good morning to everyone
Yeah.
and just give
Um.
me a moment?
Yeah. So, welcome to Anti-Fascist Book Club, Banner and Backbone. I get to hang out with Nick and Melissa now every Friday, so you guys are stuck with me. I teased you guys a little bit last week, said I was only here for the one time, but psych, I'm back. I'm back every Friday. And you're going to see me a lot more on Banner and Backbone. You're going to see a lot more of the Firebrand Project because democracy calls. So here we are. And, Nick's got to get his like 12 screens up. He's playing war games
There
over
we go.
here.
Right.
Command and control. So, but he
It's all
he's
that. It's all that. Call it or not call it. Warcraft and Starcraft and all of those
that's
games.
right.
Learning Command and Conquer. Just learning
That's
those
right.
board games, putting
Yes.
all the pieces in place.
You're playing like 4 games on 4 different monitors simultaneously, so you don't have to wait when the other turns are going, so you're
Mhm.
constantly stimulated.
Yeah, it's like playing different games of like Civ 6 or 6 7,
Yeah.
whatever version they're on right now. But you're all the characters, but you're on different screens, so you don't get the same backgrounds. I'm ADHD as fuck, and
Oh, wow.
I was in tech, so like I used to just sit there and play Civ 6 or like Civ 5, and just like hours and hours of just, God, I want to get to space. I need to get to space. And then 12 hours later, I'm like, shit, I'm not in space yet, and I'm dying. Anyway, welcome everyone. Let me get shifted over. Oh, is Ellie with us in the chat? Oh, Ellie, are you
Yes.
able to? Do you want to be able to join us on screen, or you said you were at work earlier, so I didn't want to. want to bother your day. But if you want to join us, I'll send you over a link. Um, and we can get you on the show too. Um, but let's switched over to our book and do a quick recap, or our writing and do a reading and do a quick recap of the beginning, and get ourselves back into it where we left off. So this, I will drop a link in all the chats as we go. And this is going to be, this is from Task Force Butler itself. This is the What is Fascism and Can It Happen Here document. Thanks, Shane. Appreciate that, for dropping
Got
the
it.
link. Um, and so last week we went over the overview, the very general section of what is fascism. I think we all know at this point what fascism is, but they're broken down into the four main categories, which are power, control, loyalty, and grievance. Um, Last week we were able to get through this intro section and power and control. Um, and I definitely want to get to loyal, and we're going to start with loyalty. And I
Isn't it crazy that we're starting with loyalty the week that the generals have been summoned?
I know, and I really, really hope a lot of those generals remember their pre-World War II history and what happened in Germany, with generals, because it's a long night, and Pete Hegseth is a piece of
Yes.
shit. And demand loyalty, demand loyalty, because at this
Yes.
point they are in the consolidation. They have power,
Mhm.
control, they want loyalty. They need loyalty because the biggest thing in the way of fascism is the military at this point, our generals. The generals have the power, and historically speaking, the generals in this country have always said no, unless they were Confederates.
Right.
But they weren't generals of this country. Those were traitors. Generals who are loyal to the Constitution, and there have been decades and decades and decades and 2 centuries now, over 2 centuries of generals, longer than the U.S. itself. The U.S. Army flag is 1775, not 1776. The Army was there before the country, and it was there fighting against what at this point could have been considered a fascist regime of a monarchy with taxation without representation. We're living through a fascist regime of robber barons and dictators and oligarchs with taxation without representation. But the military has always said no. The generals have always stood up. Now is going to be the most important time they ever do it. And
Yes.
I hope those generals all remember they swore an oath to the Constitution decades ago. They've reaffirmed that oath throughout their careers, over and over and over, through presidents, through Republican presidents, through Democratic presidents, through all presidents, because it's not the president that they swore the oath to, it's the Constitution. Remember your oath, because
And
loyalty to the Constitution has to come first.
And I'd like to add, for anyone who didn't serve in the military, every rank in the military is educated on your constitutional duty. And the higher your rank goes, the deeper and more complex that education is, to the point where if you are an admiral or a general, you have a very, very clear idea through education provided by the military of what your constitutional duty is. Now, I live in a military town. The coffee shop I go to almost every morning, heavily military. It's next to a Coast Guard little station. There's coasties in there, there's sailors in there. Nobody talks politics ever. Like it's just sort of a, we get it, right? This morning, people were talking politics in my coffee shop, and people in uniform were talking politics. I've never seen it. I've never seen that happen ever. People are extremely, and people in uniform are extremely concerned about Pete Hegseth calling over 100 high-ranking generals, the highest-ranking generals, into DC with no layout of what this meeting is.
No. And
I have
on top
a
of that,
question for
yeah,
the civvy guy here. All right, so I think would you guys say that a large reason that we probably still have yet to see anything really out of the military, despite how fucked up things like are right now, is this like these generals to a large degree like clinging to this like this nonpartisanship, that this apoliticism that they're supposed to have, so they're like so desperately clinging to any possible way for them to not have to do this like very uncomfortable thing that is
yes.
unprecedented. Would you say that's yeah?
It's I don't
Absolutely.
I yes. I don't think it's unprecedented though. I think it's terribly, terribly stupid. But we've done things where generals have gathered before, and so from a veteran's point of view and from a family that has a rich history in the military, and I've studied US history through most of my life, the thing that separated us and that let us keep the military apolitical, the roots of that were from George Washington laying down his sword and stepping out of command as a military commander to become the civilian commander in chief. And there is a concept within, especially within the upper ranks and within officers. It's there for enlisted, especially higher rank enlisted soldiers. Lower rank enlisted are still learning how to not be political when they're in uniform. Like that's part of the teaching process in the military. It is very baked in to be apolitical. It is the only organization in the world, as Bobby Jones said last night on Blue Amp Media with Cliff Schechter and David Schuster, was it's the only organization where they'll throw a white supremacist from the South, neo-Nazi from the South, and a gangbanger from a city into the same unit and tell them, fucking make it work. And they do.
And they
And
do.
they get over it. And they get over the fact that one of them's a racist piece of shit, the other's a semi-racist piece of shit. They're just from different backgrounds and they have to learn how to work together. The military is the boiling pot of America. Like it is the most diverse, it's the most DEI organization, it's the most like core segment of America. If you want to know what's happening to the rest of America, look what's happening to veterans. And they're tearing the veteran community apart by politicizing them. And it's a really bad precedent Donald Trump is trying to set. And the 800 generals that were brought back, the issue also is it leaves us vulnerable. Every
Melissa,
single
I
one
have
of those
okay, go
generals
ahead.
had a job to do and was doing a job. They don't get to the fucking rank of general for no fucking reason. Like, so this leaves us really unsecure and unsafe, especially after like what 2 days ago or yesterday they intercepted Russian nuclear bombers in international airspace outside of Alaska. Um, and NATO is being tested on a daily basis, and we are trying to provoke a war in Venezuela. So, power, control. Next step is loyalty, because if they want to start a war, they need the generals to say yes.
I had a question in my chat that I just want for Melissa,
Yeah.
actually, and someone was asking, like, what were they saying? You know, was there anything that stuck out to you that, like, really, like, perked up your ears when you were in your coffee shop this morning?
There, most of the the people in uniform that were in there were pretty lower enlisted ranks, and they're really concerned about loyalty. Like they kept saying, "Is this going to be a loyalty thing?"
Mm,
And do all of us, like they kind of were like, do all of us have to follow the loyalty of the admiral we fall under? You know what I mean? They were like
yeah.
essentially are we taking sides at this point? Which led me to, that was a very interesting way to frame that. Like, does the military see this as an internal thing? Like there will be military against military. That was very interesting to me. So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
the conversation, was, is this a loyalty pledge and how does that trickle down to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it will. It will. It's going to be a lot of hard decisions. And the thing with the military too is a lot of these young uh, E1s, E2 privates, through specialists, even E5 sergeants, they're looking for leadership to help them make the right decisions and understand if the decision that they're doing is ethical or moral or legal. Because those questions have to be asked and answered. And the idea of is an order legal or not really needs to be hashed out in terms of who gets to make that choice. And I hear a lot of people talking about it as though it has to get litigated through the courts. That was not how I was taught. That's not how I was taught that your duty to loyalty is to the Constitution first. And if that order is anti constitutional or unconstitutional, or you know to be illegal, you don't follow it. Not, oh, I think I might need to follow it now and then maybe I'll report it after. No, you say no in the moment. You will get court martialed. You will get brought charges. They will bring charges against you if you try to say no. They will try and ruin your career. It's going to take courage. Courage is, and I loved how Bobby Jones put this. Sorry, I'm going on a slight tangent on this before we get into it. Bobby Jones talked about this last night too, was like the reason that the Navy's motto is has courage over bravery is because bravery is the assumption of doing it without fear. Courage is doing it while you're still afraid and with fear. And we need citizens to be courageous. We need soldiers and service members and sailors and airmen and airwomen and submariners and Marines to all stand up for the and Coast Guard members to all say no when it comes time in the moment. You do not need to litigate it. Officers, please shut up about saying you have to litigate things before they can be deemed illegal orders. I was a sergeant. I was on the ground. We told you no. It is command driven, mission driven. Soldiers, service members, say no. If you think it's illegal, say fucking no. That is the loyalty test. Is, are you loyal to the Constitution and will you say no when an illegal order is given in the moment?
Right.
Because just following orders did not work the first time around for the Nazis.
Right. And
So,
just like with corporations, the true power of a corporation lies in middle management. If you have shitty middle management, you're going to have high turnover and low
Yeah.
morale, and your company's not going to thrive. So the true power lies in middle management, and it is exactly the same in the military, particularly in this instance. If chiefs in the Navy and sergeants elsewhere say no, say this order stops here, and
mhm,
honestly, I'm not sure about other branches, but when you're in the Navy and you achieve the rank of chief, they take you away for a private retreat. Like, it is a really, really big deal. And that is part of what they teach chiefs, that you are now the barrier to
mhm,
lower enlisted people to everybody in khakis above you. You are the barrier to stop illegal orders, to stop harassment, to stop any negativity. And it's also your job to funnel down the correct orders. So that middle management level of military is really, whatever happens on Monday with the generals is one thing. When it trickles down, that middle management level is where we're really going to see where the military's mettle is. Like, where does the true heart of the military lie? If Fox News has been successful in the past 20 years of being on every fucking screen, on every base, and every ship, then we may see a failure at that level. And I
yeah.
sincerely, sincerely hope that I am wrong.
Yeah.
Is that largely and we saw a long time like things come and go, right? But like unilateral firing of all of those JAGs, right? Like how important is their absence in this moment? Like
Hugely.
Tremendous.
So huge. Because they're the ones who would defend the soldiers and the service members or sailors or the chief or the senior non-commissioned officer from your branch or even warrant officers in the army. Like if they're the guardians of truth and loyalty and understanding, because they guide and help. They're your leaders. They're supposed to be there. Officers, you better fucking step up and say no before it ever gets to an enlisted soldier. That's your job.
Yes.
Your duty is to never allow an illegal order to get to your soldiers. You should never put your soldiers in the position where they have to defy an illegal order, because then you're putting their life and their teammates' lives on the line because you could not make a decision. Officers, step the fuck up. You went to school for this. You've trained for this. Step the fuck up. Because Jag getting fired, Shane, that's huge. That was huge. That was the first step. We all knew, those of us who served knew this was coming when Jag got this, is basically getting dismantled. They don't want service members to be able to know their rights. They don't
Right.
want service
Along
members to
those,
know that they can say no.
yeah, along those lines, I just dropped the GI Rights hotline number into the chat. If anybody watching is active duty or knows someone who is active duty, or just share it, go make a post and share it on all your socials so it's out there. Because without JAG, they are going to have to reach out to outside sources, and the GI Rights hotline will advise them. You know, they are experts in that field to advise them.
you know what? Something else we can do as well. Perfect. I know Nick's got it, but after this live stream as well, one thing that I can do, I'll mention it on my show later today, the Firebrand Report. But I think we should all, if you're in the chat, everyone make a note, share this number, because the big thing about Substack and all of this is about amplifying using our own voices. So me, Nick, and Melissa, we can share this in a note, but we cannot understate just hearing Nick and Melissa talk about this from their own personal experience and their deeper understanding of the importance of what these soldiers don't have access to right now in this critical moment. I'm looking at the chat. I'm going to guess I have two of them open, probably close to 200 people in here right now. One thing each of you you're all here because you care about fighting fascism. You care about defending our democracy. To do that, an action you can take today is to take that phone number you see going across the bottom of the screen, write it down after you're done today, make a note and say to anyone who knows a member, has a family member or a friend in the service, share this number with them. Doesn't matter if you have 0 followers. Trust me, the algorithm cares. You can all do this if you're as scared as all 3 of us here are right now, because we are scared. Just because we put on this face and smile and, you know, talk about this like it doesn't bother us, it bothers the shit out of every single one of us. So, you know, that's how we can all be united on this front. And that's a really easy thing you guys can do to fight fascism and to stop, you know, potentially making this situation be just as horrible as these two have described for our servicemen and women.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get into the reading and go down to the sections. And we'll skip over power. We already know the fetishization of power and presenting themselves as strongman with carefully curated propaganda, a cult of personality, and ritualized showcases of military strength. We've seen those. They're trying to do them. The military has still said no. If you remember the one from Donald Trump's birthday parade, his tiny squeaky tank squeaking along, just service members giving hearts on the screen and shit. Like, they knew what they were doing. That was subtle protest from the military, and it wasn't very fucking subtle. That was protest because officers allowed that to happen. You would not have gone through a ceremony like that. Like, I've been through change of command ceremonies and things like that. We can be precise. These guys were not.
Yeah.
They ruined the big showcase of ritualized military strength. take heart in that. That means a lot of folks take their oaths really seriously. Those were Green Berets too. Those were the best of, those are the best of the best. They are meant to kill. They are trained killers. That's what they do. That's what they do for a living. I mean, they're really good at it too. Um, and they were having a joke on the president. You wouldn't joke with the president any other time. So the power is there, but I think it's also an illusion. They want us to think they're more powerful than they are. Next is our control. This is where we're sort of at right now. Is if you all want to know, welcome to being freedom fighters in America. They are trying to label it as terrorism. It is not. Do not use their word. That is not what it is. Terrorism is what right-wing nut jobs with who have been black pilled and nihilists who are killing people do. Terrorism is not what we're doing. We are freedom fighters. But let's get into the big section for the day, which is loyalty. We're going to hit to our big bold points. Let me scroll down just a little bit so that it shows on the screen. The leader cannot fail, the leader cannot fail. He can only be failed. So, Melissa, do you want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on this and how it's possibly related, still digging into what's going on Monday? Because I think that's hugely important and we need to really, really talk about that stuff. What do you think about that in context with the 800 generals that have been called back for a meeting?
Yeah, it's quite clear to me. And we also have from the world of the press as it relates to the Department of Defense is that journalists were told, if you want to come back in the Pentagon and report from the Pentagon, you have to sign this pledge that you will essentially, not verbatim, but essentially, you will only report what we say you can report. And if you didn't sign that pledge, you are no longer allowed in the press pool inside the Pentagon. So you lose access entirely. So this puts journalists in a position to, do you sign that? And then you go in and attempt to gather information and disseminate that information in some other way? Or do you refuse to sign a loyalty pledge to a regime and are then denied access to the Pentagon? With that action happening first, I cannot fathom that this meeting is far off base from that. I think they are establishing a base of loyalty, a base of first the press that will report what they want, and then the military leaders who will engage in the activity that they want. So this section really chilled me when I read it this week, because to me it feels like that's exactly what's going on. Is we are demanding a loyalty to this administration that has never been seen before in this country. Short, I mean, McCarthyism definitely was an example of this, but engaging the military in this way will rocket it past what happened during the McCarthyistic era.
Yeah.
This is something that as we're talking about this loyalty, right, and this idea, and like you kind of go back, I had two thoughts when I saw this, but the first in relation to this is this loyalty in and of itself is one of the greatest weaknesses within fascism. First, like this loyalty within fascism and the requirement of loyalty is, if you look historically, right, like, and we look at what actually fucked Hitler, it was his insistence of the invasion of Russia, like to push in, and they said we shouldn't go back in, like we should just hold it, and all of his generals were like, no, but he was so tweaked out at that point, he was like, we're gonna do it, and they all did it, and guess what? Like, it lost them the war. It was the catalyst. Millions of soldiers were lost. It was that loyalty to the wrong idea, to doing the wrong thing in the eye of loyalty. And that's double fasted. You have the example where people who maybe know that it's the right thing do the wrong thing to be loyal anyway. And then you have the smart people were replaced. And then you have inefficient people doing the job, which can also lead to a failure in that point as well. So when we talk about looking at this loyalty, and then I think about that in our military, and I think about just observations I have already of, our recent military operations, and like the actual efficacy of like what we've been doing is like, we've lost way more shit historically than we have, at least in my observation. Like jets are falling off of aircraft carriers, we're calling success and then, killing all of these, innocent civilians and dropping bombs and not hitting the targets, and I have to wonder, does this have something to do with the removal of a lot of these leaders on the basis of, I don't know, being a woman? Because Pete Hegseth is a misogynist, alcoholic piece of shit,
Yes.
And I have to wonder, maybe that's real-time examples of the negative side of that loyalty.
Yeah,
Well,
because
yeah.
that's we're looking at it with this cabinet. He hired people that were loyalists over anything else, and none of them know how to do their jobs even remotely, like not even remotely. So you have a bunch of loyalists running major departments of the federal government, and they are crumbling beneath their leadership because their loyalty to do whatever, dear leader has as a whim today is they're trying to push out programs faster than he even changes his mind on things, and they're like, oh no, we're reversing on that. Okay, so it's all a shit show. You see the Department of Health absolutely falling apart because anything that Trump decides is unhealthy trickles down to what RFK will decide is unhealthy, and then that's what we're all we're all subject to this nonsense. So that's a really great point, that when you have loyalty over qualification, you get a lot of idiots in charge.
The
Yeah.
idiocracy.
Well, it's cronyism too. It's our next highlighted part is the idea of cronyism in a fascist context overall. Cronyism is built in corruption. It is built in using loyalty instead of merit. Like if they really wanted a meritocracy, DEI would be built in, because that is how you get a meritocracy. You have to have 100% of the population be available to, or 100% of the workforce be able to be applicable for it to actually get the best of the best. Because if you exclude people, then you're not getting the best of the best, possibly. Like, and if you're excluding people just on arbitrary reasons, like, oh, they're black or a woman or Hispanic or Asian or Jewish or not a nationalist Christo fascist, then it's cronyism. Or it's accepting $50,000 in a kava bag, ham faced Tom Homan, and not getting charged by the FBI at the time that it happened under the Democratic administration of Joe Biden. That's cronyism too. That was a failure on Joe Biden and our Democratic leadership's part to actually do their damn jobs. Cronyism was accepting Mitch McConnell's excuse that they'll get over it and not impeaching Donald Trump when he incited an insurrection on January 6th. That's cronyism. That's what we're seeing. Stephen Miller is the effect of cronyism. That's like basically what he and Russell Vought are cronyists doing cronyism and being fucking assholes to everyone. At least that's my opinion on this big next part of the section is cronyism. And not only did cronyism collapse or lead to the failure of the Nazis and Germany, it also led to the failure of the USSR. Like that's the reason Russia became Russia and stopped being the USSR in the long run, is because they replaced competent generals and military leadership with loyalists. And whenever you do that, you lose, because loyalists don't make good choices. Loyalists think about the leader and not about the thing that they're actually protecting.
And if it just to bring a little bit of you said the USSR collapsed, and it makes me think, I was trying to find some positivity in my day, which is hard these days. And I'm like, at least we're not living through Stalin's Great Purge. We could be living through Stalin's Great
Yeah.
Purge, and you know what? America, not even Trump's fascists have the stomach to do what Stalin did, because there's a reason might be the worst human being ever to live. And yes, people say Adolf Hitler. No, I think Stalin has a real good shot at it. So, when you're looking at the news today and you're like, fuck, this sucks, be like, at least I'm not living through the Great Purge. At least Stalin's not the supreme leader. Just find a little positive there.
I want to ruin your positivity and remind you that our RFK Jr. is our health and human sacrifices director, and he is engineering a plague, and they are killing USAID. They just gave billions of dollars to Argentina instead of US citizens. They are demonizing medications. They are demonizing vaccines. People are going to die all over the place. I think Donald Trump is going to attempt to be worse, or the people who are with him, because you and I have talked about this before, the Curtis Yarvins of the world. And you're going to have to meet with the opinionated ogre, Shane. I'm going to get him onto a Palin talk with us.
Sweet.
Because he brought up the Silicon Valley religion, basically that nihilistic religion that they all believe in, and he knows he's done some articles on it, and I want to do a deep dive with him around that, similar in vein to like learning what we do here, y'all. Like, this is an educational thing for all of you, but as a reminder too, while we're doing this, this is Banner and Backbone bringing you the Anti-Fascist Book Club. If you can tell, we're not doing anything weird or crazy. We're not advocating for violence. In fact, we're just educating. Our advocation is always against violence. I'm going to be very specific. Against violence. Yeah, Courtney, Health and Human Sacrifices. That was a Jacob Summers thing, Coach Cap. You guys should all follow him and subscribe to him. He's a good friend of mine. But they're using all of this is like, they're using cronyism. They've been building it over decades, and failures on leadership from the Democratic side and the Republican side. It's not a one-sided issue. But I think we're past the point where we need to talk about the fact that Democrats have failed us miserably. Corporate Democrats are miserably not meeting this moment. There are some Democrats who are. I'm not saying, don't remember, like, we're not going to say all Democrats, because I am not going to lump Jasmine Crockett in, or AOC in, or some of the other. Sorry, representatives are so hard to remember their names, and like senators. But I do know Jasmine Crockett and AOC.
The Democratic establishment has failed, not the individual people. And I always like to say, it's like these people who we love that are fighting and are awesome. They ran as Democrat because that was the only avenue in a two-party system that they could win on that platform. It's not because they're Democrats. It's because they could only run as a Democrat if they wanted to get on the ballot, right? So, the establishment itself, that means, yes, it does mean the Schiffs, the Schumers, the Pelosi's, all of them, okay? Anyone who's been sitting there more than 10 years, you fucked up. I don't even like it. We shouldn't be here. If you've been there 10 years and now you're finally starting to realize that, oh no, this is a problem. You built the problem by conceding again and again and again for the sake of, Obama was like, they go low, we go high. Guys, I'll be honest with you, that shit doesn't work, because if you go high and they keep punching you in the stomach, you're just missing. It's like, it's stupid to me but I'm going to go on a tangent. But anyway, to your point, the establishment has failed us, not those individuals you're talking about, those Crockett's, those Winters, those, Ocasio-Cortez.
Swalwells. And that's cronyism too. Like, it is cronyism what's going on. They were bought. The Democratic establishment, the establishment portion, has been bought and paid for, just like the Republican establishment is bought and paid for, just like our media is being bought and paid for through Nexstar and Sinclair, which are, by the way, very right-wing groups, or Oracle, and Larry Ellison and David Ellison, like they control so much power in the US and are a monopoly. They're trying to make an 80% media saturation monopoly. The rule for media saturation, that like the monopoly line of what they consider a monopolized market, is 30% saturation ownership.
Yeah.
Sinclair and Nexstar combined make 80, like 89% ownership. They're just blowing away the rules to allow cronyism because they're controlling both the distribution mechanism and the distributor. They're creating a monopsony. We talked about this, right? Shane, you and I have talked about the monopsony
Yep.
that Shyam Sankar wants, one of the CEOs of Palantir, is when you control both the means of production and the means of distribution, you have a monopsony, which is a monopoly, but on both sides.
Right. And when you have, like Yanni mentioned in the chat, when you have Peter Thiel holding a three-part talk on the end times, which he alone has the money and power to facilitate happening,
Mhm.
more people are not slightly alarmed by that and find that a little bit odd. A man who's never been outwardly Christian, has never spoken or written any type of content on Christianity whatsoever, is now touting this deep faith that he has that has led him to do this three-part lecture series on the Antichrist.
Mhm.
That's definitely weird, right? Like
Yeah,
we
there's
should
some
all take
cronyism there.
notice that that's very odd.
Yeah, like cronyism is people being bought off and paid off to spread a message. Like, look what happened with Russia too during our last election when we found out, and then nothing happened about it, that Russia paid multiple far right nihilist podcasters to spout Russian propaganda. That's cronyism. It was allowed. Cryptocurrency, replacing the US dollar with cryptocurrency, is cronyism in the worst fucking way. They're destroying our money to enrich themselves. Stealing all of our social security benefits is cronyism.
Right.
Lobbying is cronyism. We've
It's
legalized corruption and called it lobbying.
Yeah, I mean, like at this point too, like when you look at loyalty, you have and to expand on this, right? Because as we read this, one of the things you're going to go down here, and there's a couple points. You see, fascist street gangs. What are the fascist street gangs? They're ICE. Okay, so
Nice.
ICE is a fascist street gangs. I've seen videos now to the point where ICE is literally just a fucking white dude in a long sleeve shirt, and some khakis with a gun tackling
Right.
some guy. I mean, like literally, they don't even have to wear a badge. They don't have to identify themselves. Fuck, me and Nick could go out and pretend to be ICE agents with a gun and our khakis and some handcuffs we got at the general store or wherever, and
Right.
boom. So
We
there's the
won't,
street
but
gangs,
we
right?
could. Like
We won't.
that's
Like
the
that's
thing.
not something. But that's the thing, right? Like maybe we could pretend to be arrest the ICE agents because they're not. Hey, you could be a fake ICE agent. Anyway, that's stupid. I'm gonna keep going. I
That's
have
also a
thought process.
felony. I'm not going to advocate for doing impersonating federal officers because that is a felony, and
Right.
we do not
Yes,
want to be the unlawful
yes.
people, like peaceful and patriotic. But yeah, like the deployment of
My
street gangs.
sarcasm
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
should
I
have
want to
been
make sure, just
more
so
clear
everyone
there.
is clear, we can't be
Um,
sued. Nobody's going to
yes,
sue us
no,
here.
that's
Like,
fair.
we are
That's
not advocating for violence. We are, in
no
fact, advocating against and teaching against
against
and
it.
teaching what is bringing it.
Correct.
And I think we're at a great point because I we could spend an entire month just talking about ICE and the fascist street gang that is coming and here. I want to talk more though. Violence and the militarization of politics. We see that. Let's actually stop there because we've got our two biggest pieces right here. Is violence and the militarization of politics, and our absolute loyalty and politically motivated violence are a lethal combination. And this is the night of the long knives. This is what we're talking about, where the Nazi Party purged the military leadership. This is what they are going to do. Like, don't have any doubt in your mind that if they can do the worst thing possible, they're going to do it. It's like Occam's razor, but it's Trump's razor because Occam's razor doesn't match quite enough about how dumb that the Trump administration is going to be. And if they can do it, they're going to do it.
Right. And the mention in this section, the things that really stood out to me bigly were the mention of martyrs, the martyrdom. So now we have our first martyr. And while it was not technically a government official or a military leader, why did our government leader speak at his memorial? Why did his memorial turn into a government rally where the highest leaders of military spoke, and they did not speak just memorializing Charlie Kirk? In fact, they did very, very little memorializing Charlie Kirk. They each issued speeches that were essentially edicts. They were dog whistles to everyone listening. They were thickly overlaid with messages of violence and aggression. And further down there, it talks about youth indoctrination. Turning Point USA is a youth indoctrination organization. And since that assassination of Charlie Kirk, my kids, who are really not legally politically actively, I mean, one of them's voted like twice, my kids started getting texts from Turning Point, and then I started getting texts. So they're buying every list in America to flood people with personal contacts from Turning Point USA. And if that's not youth indoctrination, if Turning Point USA is not our version of the Hitler Youth, I don't know what is.
And
I
on top of that, plus the 39 other organizations, because Turning Point USA and 39 other far right conservative organizations are now in partnership with the Department of Justice,
Yes.
or sorry, Department of Education, to rewrite civics and redefine our civic education system in the United States. That is youth indoctrination. That is creating a little white nationalist Hitler Youth across the US. They're going to use AI. They're going to fucking make it all this meritocracy based sounding shit. They're going to teach girls and women that they are lesser. They're going to teach that slavery was okay because that's what PragerU teaches.
Yes.
And like they literally teach that slavery had its upsides for the
And to
black people who
further
were enslaved and they were okay with it. They enjoyed it. No, the
to
fuck they
further
didn't.
to further tie those pieces together, I checked out the White House press page. If you haven't
Yeah.
checked that out lately, you should really check out the fully propagandistic page that is full of links that look like they go to internal White House press documents, and they actually go to articles by The Blaze, The Post Millennial, Fox Business, Fox News, Free Beacon, Breitbart, and the Daily Caller. And the Daily Caller is the news arm of the same organization that runs PragerU. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. Weird. Odd coincidence is that.
It's
Um,
weird enough that our White House is blatantly plastering absolute right wing propaganda on the official White House press page. But to further connect those dots between PragerU and then on to Turning Point with the Daily Caller, who has a featured article on the White House press page right now.
yeah. And
Yeah,
PragerU is not a university.
no.
Not legally a university. They're not an education institution. They create homeschooling curriculum for far right Christian organizations that are now part of our education system in the public schools. They are a Christian based organization. They are merging religion into education. They're using the theonomy tactics of merging old is like old school Abrahamic faith system laws into civil law to make a Christian theonomy. And I'm going to keep saying the word theonomy for people in the crowd because it's different than a theocracy. A theonomy is taking civil law, merging it with old biblical law through such as PragerU, Turning Point USA, all the other ones, the 38 others that I'm not going to ramble off my head, Heritage Foundation, they're creating a Hitler Youth through school, summer school programs. People aren't talking about Bible camps. People aren't talking about Christian summer camps as Hitler Youth Centers or as indoctrination centers. I got told I shouldn't talk about those things, and maybe it's a little offensive that we lump all Christians. No, we need to lump all Christians in at the moment, because if
The
you're not
Christians
willing
didn't
to
want you to lump
confront
them all
it,
in together. They would address their own.
yeah,
The good, upstanding, Jesus following Christians would address their own. And since they have not, we all have to address it now.
yeah, it's like the white people problem. Like black people and Hispanic folks and Asian folks, everyone who's not white has been screaming about issues of white violence and white crime and white terrorism for years, hundreds of years, and we have refused to listen. So it's time we listen. That's why people say all men. That's why people say all white people. I don't take offense to it because I'm actively out here talking against it. It is not enough to be just a or anti-racist. You have to be actively anti-racist. You have to be actively pro-democracy. You have to be actively pro-life and pro-sanctity and pro against youth indoctrination through religious organizations as our education system. And Melissa, I've been seeing you talking back and forth in the chat about the PragerU content. So if you're a parent, I'm a parent. I live in Arkansas. You don't think they're going to be bringing this here if they haven't already really fast? They will.
Yep.
Like, we already get this type of shit here in Arkansas. You need to watch your kids' education system and you need to understand what they're doing. Do not pull them out of public school. That's what they want. They want people to pull out of public school. They want a dumber school youth. They want an indoctrinated youth, and they only want a white youth educated. Do not pull your children out of school. Get involved yourself and fight against it. Go to school board meetings. The part of the book club, one of the big things that we want to make sure people understand too, because we have almost 300 people in the audience at this point. Like between the 4 chat groups, we have over almost like 250, almost 300 people in the audience. If every single one of you went out and started an anti-fascist book club at your own local library, because that's what this is all about. We read this. All 3 of us have read through this before, and read about it, or are reading it while it's on the screen, and we're discussing and analyzing. That's all the book club is. It's just teaching you how to communicate with each other, teaching you what things are available and what to look out for, and how to keep your community safe, how to fight back against it, how to push back and go on offense, not attack, but offense, and fight back against this with every legal mechanism that we can until the law isn't enough. But right now, the law needs to be enough, and our actions have to be enough, which means go out and do something, because your kids are getting indoctrinated.
I just you guys were talking about you PragerU, and then like, yeah, they're indoctrinating kids. I was looking I'm just looking at their 5-minute videos on their website. I just a couple titles just to give you guys an idea. The truth about fracking. Okay, so we know what that means. What does it mean to be free? What the fuck? So
Look up the
PragerU is
Christopher
now going to be
Columbus
telling.
ones.
Oh, I've seen that. I've seen the ones about him talking about slave. But I mean, like, if you're a parent, like, do yourself a favor, go to PragerU and just browse. You don't even need to look, but look at what your kid is about to get hit with, because like you should be ready for the questions that are going to come from it. Because if you have your kids are great because they come the same. They're always going to ask questions, and when they get fed an answer, you need to be like prepared for what they're going to be asking you, and be ready to give them a good answer, one that can't be rebutted by the garbage that they're getting online. So arm yourself in advance to be able to see what the government and the DOE now is going to be throwing at your kid to try and poison their mind. So, just a quick thought as you were saying that.
I would even as a parent say, don't wait for the questions. You need to be intimately involved with your kids' education. When they come home, have a part in doing their homework with them. Ask them, what did you learn today? open the conversation, because some of this stuff is, a lot of PragerU stuff is really corny and cheesy, and it's obviously like weird, and I think kids are going to pick up on that. But some of these other organizations are making really slick curriculum, and your
Mhm.
child may not catch like those red flags. They may just accept, because a lot of the content, especially out of the Heritage Foundation, is a lot more subtle, and it's a lot more, oh, this is founding fathers language. This is what our founders wanted. So you need to be proactive in having those conversations with your kids every day. What did you learn at school today? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. Be proactive. That's really what it's going to take right now as a parent. Um, like, I'm a parent, Melissa's a parent, Shane not a parent yet.
Parent.
Um,
I got fur babies. I always say I
you
love
got
my
fur
dogs, but
babies.
I don't need to teach them to fight fascism. They'd bite Trump on the butt just if I asked
Yeah.
them to. So
Yeah, and like now is the time though, like to get fully engaged and activated with your kids, because we only have a couple more minutes and we've gone a lot on loyalty. I think that was probably the best thing we could have done today, was talk really deep into loyalty in some of the
Right.
meanings of it. But the next section that we're going to get into, maybe even next week. That way, everyone has time. So, in 2 weeks, what we'll do is we will plan to start discussing On Tyranny, Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny. So, if you have the opportunity between now and 2 weeks, pick up the book either through, what is it, bookshop.org or bookstore.org, Melissa, the one. Um,
Bookstore.org. Right.
yeah.
Thrift
Pick
Books
it
is
up through
also a
there.
great way to get books as well. It's a used book site. So I always say get your books used. It's
Yep.
cheaper,
Or
and you know it's also they pull from other bookstores, so you're helping local bookstores more than your Barnes and Noble. So just another good place to look. Thriftbooks.com.
yeah, and if you have a local library that has the book, go to the library and check out your book. Like, nothing
And if
wrong with
your
checking
local
out your book.
library doesn't have the book, ask them to get it. Most of the time, they'll get it.
Yeah. Um, and so our next section next week, we're going to talk a lot on grievance, because we're living through grievance structure every single day. It's abusing the shit out of us all the fucking time. Um, but I think getting into what we did today really deeply on loyalty was a great starting point for all of this. So also too, in our last couple minutes while we close out here, is I'm going to shift us back to our normal main screen without the window. Boo, boo, boo.
Yeah, don't you just
And
love how the regime just keeps giving us content that matches our curriculum? It's really
yeah,
nice of them.
yeah, it's nice that they are giving us what we need to learn, um, because Chris, Chris Goldsmith, a friend of ours, friend of the show, he put this together. He is part of Task Force Butler. He's one of the founders, or I think he is the founder of Task Force Butler. Um, and he and the Task Force Butler team put together the What is Fascism guidebook that we're reading through right now. It's very short, but it's also really important to discuss it deeply because we have to understand what's going on. Um, and so, just so everyone's aware, in a couple weeks, we're going to have Chris Goldsmith back. He's going to be a returning guest with us on the show. He wrote this, he's put out a bunch of information. Please go follow him and subscribe to his work. But also, please go subscribe and follow to Banner and Backbone, to Melissa Corrigan, to Shane Urich, to myself. Help get us out there, get this message. And remember, the book club is something you can do. We're doing it virtually because we want to connect everyone. We want to connect all of ourselves to this. And we want to get the word out so that people know. But we also want you guys to all know that you have the power to do it too. Like, go to your local library. Your biggest supporter of anti-fascism is your librarian. Um, they support and care for knowledge. That is anti-fascist by definition. Um, they care for knowledge based solely on the fact that it's knowledge. Um, and so go support them. Go support your libraries. Melissa, anything from you to close out the show? I'll hand it over.
I'm going to try to end with a call to action every single week. This week, I'm going to hit on my old favorite, 5calls.org. It gives you the number to your local representative, congressman, senator, and it even provides scripts for a variety of topics in case you get tongue tied when they answer the phone. 5calls.org.
And Shane, how about you, brother?
I will say, one, I want to remind us again that we talked about this earlier, that the GI Hot Rights Hotline, and maybe Nick can throw that in the chats just so you guys can copy paste it if you need to. But after that, make sure you go make a note on your Substack, on your Instagram, Reels, feeds, whatever the hell you're on, and get the message out there, because we were talking about this meeting. It's really important that those guys, the rank and file, those enlisted, know that they have rights and they have somewhere to go when this unlawful order comes inevitably. So that's something you can do. Even if you're not in the military, you can, maybe your voice can put that number in front of someone who can get it to a young guy, 18, 19, 20 years old, who doesn't know shit about shit because they want it that way, that he has something to call if he has a question, if she has a question, if they have a question, you know, that's important. And lastly, that's my call to action for you. And then lastly, the Firebrand report is going to be on in just about 2 hours. If you guys want to catch on, I do 3 topics every day, Monday through Friday. And we'll go over 3 things in the news, and I'll give you a, my take on it. So I hope to see you there. We can keep talking about these things that are problematic. I'm sure one of the things we will cover a little bit more today will be, but
Oh, we lost you, Shane.
when I look at the news,
you're back.
I don't always look what everyone else does. Okay.
We lost you for a second there. Yeah, you're back with us.
Anyway, 2 hours, Firebrand report. Make that post. Do it for America, for democracy. I love you guys, and I will see you all next time.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Shane. See y'all next time. Next week, same time, 12:30 Eastern, for another episode of Banner and Backbone's Anti-Fascist Book